Let's start with how President Obama is doing. Chuck Todd's NBC's political director and chief White House correspondent, Roger Simon, writes for Politico. Gentlemen, let's take a look at the first thing. Here's President Obama with David Letterman last night. Let's see what we can learn. It's sort of his scorecard and how he's doing right now. Let's listen.
In terms of the health care, what is it I don't understand about this?
Well, why don't you help me through, Dave? What's been puzzling you lately?
If I'm not feeling well,
right,
I go to the CBS nurse.
Everybody should have a CBS nurse, and I'm sure the nurse is a wonderful person.
Well, there you go. Let's take a look right now with Chuck and with Roger. Here's the latest NBC polling on this question. Has the president been doing the right amount of media exposure? Well, I'm not sure people that are that sophisticated, but they certainly have an answer. 54%. A majority say yes, he's got it about right in terms of what shows he does, where he makes the points, how much television time he's got. Too much. Only 34%, only a third, and 9% say too little. Well, that's not too many. Chuck, can we go by the public's estimate of the president's Q rating and how well he's doing in terms of media saturation? Because it sounds like they like what they're seeing. Even though he does all the Sunday shows, it adds up to about right.
I think this sort of reinforces the point the White House is making, in that this idea of overexposure is a creation of the Amtrak corridor. And what I describe always as the Amtrak corridor is the New York to Washington crowd, not just the Beltway, but the New York crowd and the D.C. crowd who believe that they invented the media. And in many cases, look, the media, 90% of media is created out of those two cities. But the fact is, I think they look at this, and the public obviously gets this stuff from 20 different places, and that's why the White House says it does these things so incrementally, and they feel like they can't just do one or two shows and somehow think they're reaching everybody they want to reach, that they have to do it this way. Now, that said, it's my understanding the president himself is a little exhausted from interviews, and I have a feeling he may put the kibosh on more of this, at least in the next couple of weeks.
Well, Roger, what do you think? Because it seems to me the president has a plot, a strategy. He's carrying it out. No matter what we say here, no matter what these numbers show, although they seem to be to his benefit now, somebody is ramrodding this. Somebody in the White House, a group of people are saying to the president, more, 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 and he's doing it.
More. Yeah, absolutely. You know, the White House abhors a vacuum. If you don't fill the vacuum with your words and your pictures, someone else is going to fill it. The bad guys, from your point of view, is going to fill it.
Yeah.
Stand in the spotlight, suck up the oxygen, you get your message out. Look, the other side still is going to get its message out. You can't control talk radio, talk TV, but you will at least get your message out. And, you know, if David Axelrod believes in anything, it is repetition. You repeat and you repeat and you repeat till people get the message.
The more that, just to get back to you, Chuck, the more that the guys on the other team, it's fair to call them that, people like Glenn Beck and Rush Limbaugh and their imitators out there, the more that they beat the war drums, the more this president has to get out there and meet them in the field.
Well, I think that's right.
Look,
we just look.
Is that what you're saying?
Yes, just look at the facts. When the president wasn't out in front on health care, and it's not about Glenn Beck or Rush Limbaugh. This is a fact that when he allowed the Democrats in Congress to lead the charge on health care, the public was confused. Congress wasn't taking a leadership role. Congressional Democrats weren't, let alone your opposition was able to fill the vacuum. So it's not just about dealing with your opposition and filling the you want to take away the oxygen from supporters, because frankly, Nancy Pelosi, you look at our polls, Harry Reid, these are not the people that the White House wants to have out in front for the Democratic Party either.
Is this, I mean, I really think this is getting back to high school or grade school in a sense. And Roger, is this like if the kids are out there, the mischievous bad kids are out there spreading the word around you on Twitter or online somehow, you've got to get out there and match the story. You've got to get out there and be in their face.
Absolutely. Any politician who is attacked and doesn't respond quickly, Mike Dukakis, John Kerry,
let's watch him now. I just wonder whether this is responding, if he's giving us good answers to Letterman's question. Here's an entertainment show asking entertaining questions, but Letterman's in tune. Let's see how well he's doing with getting some answers. Here's the president.
And there's an awful lot of misinformation out there that gets floated around, and that's what we have to fight through. That's why I end up having to be on the Dave Letterman show, too.
That's right. You know? But I tell you, the one idea I'd like to see right away are these death panels. If we could get them in place immediately.
Well, there's the question. I mean, I guess you could do the satire, the opera bouffe,
sure,
Chuck, and you can make fun of the opponent, but a lot of people have in their head right now the notion they're going to have their health care rationed. There's going to be protocols to keep them from getting organ transplants. There is going to be encouragement of older people to think about end-of-life decisions that may not want to make them. There's a sense it's going to raise tax money, cost us stuff we don't want. There is a lot of bad static out there about these proposals. They're not doing that. Well, let's take a look at these numbers. Here's the new poll. 45% said they approve of the president's job on health care, but 46% don't. So on the substance, but here's the good news, I suppose, on the Republican side, 3-1 people disapprove what they're pushing. But fortunately for the president, they're not pushing anything.
Right.
And look at this one, by the way, 37% said it'll be the Republicans' fault if nothing gets done. But I'm not sure that adds up to a victory. If nothing gets done and the people blame the Republicans for nothing getting done, does that help the president when he has a big L next to his name for his first year in office, Chuck?
No, I think look, that's why you see this White House saying we got to do whatever it takes to get something passed. They believe in a couple things. Number one, when they can clear health care out of the way. Look, health care is getting in the way. They can't get energy legislation passed. They're not going to get energy legislation passed this year because health care is getting in the way. They're struggling on Afghanistan. Why? Health care is getting in the way. They're struggling getting the message across to the country that they are focused on trying to create jobs. At least that's what they're saying. But right now that focus is missing. Why? Because they're focused on health care. So they've got to figure out how to clear the decks. And you're right. I think they believe this. When they sign a piece of legislation that is called health care reform, and we could debate let's not worry about the details of it, but when it says the words health care reform and the president does that signing ceremony, he will get a small boost in the ratings, but more importantly, it clears the deck so that he can start basically dealing with these other issues, Afghanistan, which is getting pushed on him, and that's going to be, you think the politics of health care are difficult, you haven't seen anything yet when it comes to Afghanistan.
Yeah, but Chuck, that's disturbing.
And then there's the economy and jobs.
I'm trying to figure out why you're saying this a certain way, but it's disturbing. If people get the idea, if I get the idea, it disturbs me, that the president's putting off a life-and-death decision about our troop complement in Afghanistan because he's focused on his pet project, health care. I'm sorry, war is always more important than anything else. If we have a war going on, he has to make a decision about life-and-death decisions. Are you saying the White House is putting off a decision on our strategic posture in Afghanistan, the number of troops we have there, until he gets his victory on health care?
No, that I'm not saying. I'm saying that it is sucking up the oxygen of political debate in Washington, one. It's sucking up the oxygen of the White House ability to communicate on these other issues. Go to Afghanistan. Yeah, the reason of the postponement, if there's about troop levels at this point, if you're going to debate that point, it's because they're in the middle of trying to figure out what is the long-term strategy. Everything I understand about what's going on in Afghanistan, not to get off on a tangent here, is this. They're trying to come up with a new set of metrics. They're trying to redefine the mission so that when they make the decision to send troops, they can tell some of the folks on the left in Congress, look, we have an exit strategy. Here it is. The problem is they know they can't go asking for more troops without having some sort of end game in place, ready to go.
We've been there for 8 years. That's a good question. Go ahead. Let's
get back to
just go back to this question. I think a lot of people are disturbed when you talk to people. You go out and speak to groups. You hear somebody stand up in a group. Maybe these are Republicans. I don't know, but I still think they got a good point. They say, look, the country's worried about its state of the economy and increasingly worried about this war in Afghanistan. Right. And you're focusing on this trophy you're trying to win here for health care. Why don't you focus on what we care about? Well, isn't this a problem for the president?
The president can't really take things off the table. Events, facts, force issues that he has to deal with. You know, the Bush administration tried to remove the Israeli-Palestinian conflict from the front burner. Let's ignore it for 8 years. It'll be fine.
They did a great job.
Yeah, it gets worse. The president really doesn't have a choice. He's got to do health care because, as he says, the status quo is unacceptable. He's got to do the war, get out of Iraq. He's got to do something about Afghanistan. He's got to do the environment. He's still got to do immigration, which he wants to do. And then I hear the next thing he wants to get to next year is tax reform. You know, he's got to do it all. That's why we elected, I think, an activist president. We envisioned him as someone who would be an activist on these things, who would do it all, would take on issues simultaneously. And those people who
so
say...
get used to it.
Absolutely. Those people who say, oh, don't concentrate on this, concentrate on that, he's going to concentrate on everything.
But Roger and Chris, I want to say, make one point. I do think when you look at our poll numbers and you look at it from 30,000 feet, the public is punishing everybody in Washington right now, whether it's the president with lower approval ratings or Congress with disastrous approval ratings, and this is both Republicans and Democrats.
Okay.
I wonder if they are punishing Washington for not having the conversation that they're having around the kitchen table, which is jobs, jobs, jobs. And
that's what I concern.
And I do think there is a disconnect between the public and Washington, and that's why you're seeing a very anti-Washington attitude.
We're on the same page there. Yeah. Let me ask you about the Republicans. I noticed a little pullback on there. Have they feel that are they feeling they're jumping the shark, to use a television